It's Thursday, the 17th of the 4th, 2025. The time is 16 minutes past 8, and there are very many F1-centric threads at which we need to pull, primarily at the altar of Max Verstappen, and where that fella, for some say soon to be 5-time champion, will end up on the F1 grid over the next 12 months. Autosport's Ronald Vording has a go. He's quoted Max Verstappen talking about the problems and multitudinous travails of that RB21 car. So too we'll talk about Max Verstappen's response to one David Croft, Sky Sports F1 commentator, when asked about the likelihood that he'll stay as a going concern and F1 peddler at the balls that are red. So too we'll talk about Helmut Marko, because this is all interlinked as far as a very neatly packed causation pie. Let's talk about Ronald Vording in the first instance, because he's quoted Max Verstappen as talking about the multitudinous travails that are facing Red Bull, over which they need to traverse. He said the following about Max Verstappen, quoting him as saying, "But the team has experience with that, its problems, so they know which direction they should develop in." Oh, and by the way, I need to preface with this. Max Verstappen is a native Dutch speaker. What's going on up and down the paddock is that you get one side of Max Verstappen to the British media, and then you get a much more candid style and nature of Maximilian Verstappen with the Dutch-speaking press and media. And this, of course, is the context around the British biased media. Max Verstappen doesn't want to talk to the British biased media, nor, in inverted commas, does he want to talk to the FIA drivers' press conference accredited media. This all stems back to last year when he got fined by the FIA for dropping a cheeky F-bomb. Then it was customer service. Then it was community service. That was the charge that they gave to Max Verstappen. Now the ramifications are thus: zero selling them. Here's what Ronald Vording, Dutch-speaking press media, quotes Max Verstappen as saying, candid, therefore, or at least much more candid than you'll get in the FIA drivers' press conference. Javier, you're an absolute legend and far too kind as always. Quote, "But the team has experience with problems, so they know which direction they should develop in. The only issue is that they can't perfect some small details," says Max. "But it worked in 22 and it worked in 23. And in 21, we also had a good car under different regulations. So I wouldn't just attribute everything to the wind tunnel." Wayne, legend. Different gravy each and every single time. I appreciate you, sir. And this, of course, goes to the discourse that speaks to the following. Christian Horner spoke to the wind tunnel and that it's very archaic. He attributed most of the problems that the RB21 suffers from as at April 2025 to that wind tunnel, that its aspect is Neanderthal settings, that it's got concrete outside of it, and depending on the climatic circumstance, even the temperature, you will get a different output. Lest we forget that your wind tunnel needs to be repeatable as far as its results and its outcomes, consistent as far as the variables, the parameters within which you are operating. The Red Bull wind tunnel is nothing if not the opposite, the antithesis to that. Rock up on a Monday and it's raining in the UK and you'll get a very different set of results than you will on Tuesday when it's sunny. Therefore, that leaves them with a correlation real world disconnect. One set of results in a CFD in the wind tunnel, and then you get to the track and you are left with an RB21 that is epitomized, characterized even by understeer, snap oversteer and mercurial handling dynamic. Max Verstappen says, in stark contrast to Christian Horner team principle of Red Bull, that we can't solely attribute our problems, however, to the wind tunnel. Lest we forget that Christian Horner said that the wind tunnel is chaos and a lot of our correlation real world disconnect is attributable to that. Ronald Vording continues of Autosport.com that when asked if the squad's current woes are making him pessimistic for 2026 and its prospects. Maximilian Verstappen, for some say soon to be 5-time champion, responded, well, that's a completely different car, so you can't compare that. It could be a different team that suddenly gets everything right. Two things worthy of note, therefore. Different team. Max Verstappen is nothing if not a true-sayer. What does he mean by different team? Is he talking about different drivers? Is he talking about different engineers? Of course he's talking about the different car aspect, that it will be 2026, active aero, etc. 50-50 as far as the composition of the engine unit, the power unit even, electric and internal combustion. Completely different car. You can't compare that. He continues, of course we're not entirely happy with the car and we're working on a new wind tunnel. However, it takes time, continues Max Verstappen, but we already knew that. It's not a new thing this season. We saw back in 2023 that you can't detect certain things in the wind tunnel. Of course, Max Verstappen there is referring to porpoising, the fact that the boys and girls from Brackley and Brixworth, even, get your words out, Cameron, came to the fore with what they thought was a god tier machine, market leading, and it suffered for porpoising. They couldn't access the upper echelons of their performance curve for the lack of ability to run the car super low. Ground effect era, you understand that you optimize for that, as they did back in the 70s. Lotus, by running the car super low, they couldn't do it because that activated this porpoising thing. That's what Max Verstappen is referring to. Let me tee up the Max Verstappen comments. Aaron, you're a legend. Max to Merck as new driver, or Max to Aston as number 2 driver behind Lance Stroll. OG Zilla. Isn't Red Bull wind tunnel relatively new? No, OG Zilla. Old as the hills, mate. Safak, you're a legend. Proper legendary settings. Go on, and let me tell you this. Because the speculations, you'll excuse me and my throaty cough, but the speculation around Max Verstappen, I mean, it's front and centre. That's all that anybody's talking about up and down the paddock. Where is Max Verstappen going to go to? Will he stay at Red Bull? Will he end up at Aston? Or will he go to Mercedes? Or now, per Ralf Schumacher, will he end up at Alpine? Oh, the humanity. I mean, we can't even indulge that nonsense. We can't give that any credence or indulge that meaningfully, for on this channel, truth, value and objectivity, even at the altar of conjecture and speculation. I mean, we've got to keep those things front and centre. We can't indulge such nonsense, rumour, meaningfully. You think Max would go to Alpine? Flavio Briatore settings, behave yourselves. I wonder who started that rumour. But here's what Helmut Marko has said. You remember the conjecture and speculation was around Max Verstappen and his performance clause. For context and table settings, Max Verstappen has always had in his contract performance clause, even going back to 2018. What Jos Verstappen is prepared to have as far as his son's career is concerned is it fail at the very same altar, fall at the very same hurdles as his career did. Poor decisions, bad selection of driver, being deprioritised at the altar of his teammate. He's not having that, Jams. Times enough for his. You're a legend. On behalf of Court LH. Jams, it's techie. Listen, we're going to argue, aren't we? Colt LH don't like me. We're not cozy bedfellows, but you're a legend, Jams. Thank you so much, mate. Ralph should shut up. I don't disagree, Joe, but he's got to keep himself relevant. Go on then. Here's what Helmut Marko said. Again, context is key. Max Verstappen said that he needs a couple of things. He has none of them going forward as a going concern, as a Red Bull racing driver going into the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, being, of course, car capable of winning races and therefore championships. The key personnel, again, requisite to delivering a car and a package and the operational infrastructure needed to deliver, I don't know, god tier pit stops, let's say. You recall last race weekend, red bloody light gate. What are we doing? Trying to automate the pit stops, and they were nothing if not shambolic. So too, he said that he needs a semblance of harmony. Jos Verstappen is still pecking at Jos now, at Helmut now, and at bloody, they're all fighting. Helmut Marko, Christian Horner, Austria over this side, the Yavidra family over this side. It is chaos epitomised at Red Bull. Now, Helmut Marko chimes in on the timing of the performance clause. We know that Max Verstappen will have a performance clause in his contract because he always had. Jos wouldn't have it any other way. So sensitive is he to the potential tropiezos and stumbling blocks at which his career fell? Bad decision making, poor cars, right decision, wrong time, settings. And so performance clauses, per the legend that is Mark Hughes, who's written a book, brilliant biography even, about Max Verstappen, called, I've forgotten it, look at that. Well done, Cameron. Anyway, it's a good book. In there, he talks about the performance clauses and that Max Verstappen has always been a gun for hire as far as Jos Verstappen is concerned. Unstoppable is the name of the book. Definitely go and check it out. All F1 journals are created equally, but some are created more equal than others, and Hughes is one of the good ones. In there, he gives you the full length and breadth of the aspect that is Max Verstappen driving for Red Bull. He would have left in 2018 unless Red Bull was showing serious progress. Against that backdrop, Helmut Marko has been talking, as he always does, openly and honestly. He was asked today at the Saudi Arabian paddock, what's going on with Max Verstappen? What's going on with Red Bull? This is what Helmut Marko said. Red Bull GmbH consultant, head of the Red Bull Junior program. Quote, upgrades are needed for Max Verstappen to win his 5th world title, Marko told Formel.de. That is our big goal and the whole team is working hard on it. We know that to be true. Helmut Marko said that he desperately wants Max to win the 5th, exactly replicate and execute for the exact thing that Sebastian Vettel didn't manage to. He was a 4-time champion but fell at the final hurdle in 2014, did he not? Split turbo hybrid settings, Lewis Hamilton's time, et al. That's not a topic at the moment. Of course, every top driver has an exit clause if performance is not good, but they are also tuned differently. Asked, continues Formal.de, Crash.net even reporting, asked if the summer break in August will be the earliest opportunity for Max Verstappen to activate the clause and potentially leave the team as early as 2026. Helmut Marko answered in the affirmative, saying, yes, the summer break, that's the time window. Oh, the humanity, Safak. Got myself some Cam merch. Let's go, Safak. You're a legend. And there's more merch coming. I promise you, Safak. Cheeky Supermax t-shirt and hoodie is going to be chaos. Go on then. Helmut Marko continues. Yes, summer break is the time window. Ergo, Red Bull have between now and the summer break. That's not many races. And this time will go by very quickly to fix for that bloody car. If Max Verstappen is outside of the drivers standing top 3 at that period of time, just like Checo Perez was assessed over the course of the summer break and would have been sat notwithstanding the publishing of his cheeky documentary, Not Dead in Das Cabanon. Just like that, F1 sometimes, the history in F1 doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. We're left with a very similar analogous circumstance as far as Max Verstappen. If as at the summer break he's outside the driver's standing, Max Verstappen will have the option to null and void his contract by dint of this performance clause. Helmut Marko's told us this, and you want to take that to the bank. Summer break, therefore, will be critical. Between now and then, Red Bull, Christian Horner, Helmut Marko, Pierre Vacher and Rico Balbo need to bang their heads together and fix for the multitudinous ills of that RB21. Snap, oversteer, understeer, twitchy handling dynamic, mercurial mitigating, an inability to mitigate for the rate at which its tyres deg. Again, a very different, almost orthogonal circumstance as versus that which the papaya-coloured teams at Brown, Stella, Lando Norris and Oscar Jack Piastri are dealing with. Summer break settings, that's the time window. Helmut Marko continues, but please, we are currently 3rd in the Drivers' Championship with a deficit of 8 points. The summer break is still a long way off. Is it really though, Helmut? Is it really a long way off? Behave yourself. You don't have much time. The sand timer has been turned around and Max Verstappen will push that button, effecting for that exit clause in real time if he so chooses at the summer break. Cameras, merch, cotton. You're a legend, Nando. Aaron, Max and Checo at Cadillac. Oh my gosh, can you imagine? Perez rising again, potentially. It's going to be... I just don't know. There are so many... There's just too many balls and too many plates spinning concurrently. Oh, by the way, If you're a fan of the press conference, I would advise you go and watch it because it gets techier than techie things in there. At the press conference, there's two segments. The one worthy of note, Isaac Hadjar, Max Verstappen and Fernando El Plan Alonso. And of course, the question of the day was going to be pitched at Max Verstappen. What's going on with your future? In the first instance, chair of the FIA drivers press conference, Tom Clarkson, pitches at Max Verstappen. Is there a quick fix to the issues, or is 25 or 2026 the focus? Lest we forget, this is the final year of this rule and reg set before we switch over to the brand new rules, active aero, different engines. Max Verstappen responds, we're experienced enough to focus both on this year and on next year. Outside of bringing parts for the car, we're trying to focus on fixing for the ills. As far as setup, we're just focused on how we can improve the car across all the different parameters. OG Zillary legend. Real question will be is how much will Red Bull prioritise 25 car to keep Max from enacting his performance clause, sacrificing 2026 development? Well, if past his prologue, OG Zilla, we know that in 2021 they knew they knew what to do and put all their eggs in the 2021 basket. What they couldn't afford to do is what Mercedes did and forget that a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush now. Focus on the task in hand. Mercedes figured they'd focus on 2022, and how did that work out, chat? Gonzo, nothing. It yielded zero at the altar, of course, of porpoising. They flopped the case. They had the opportunity to win a record-breaking 8th for Sir Lewis, and they dropped the ball. Red Bull know there are stakes, OG Zilla, to your question. They need to fix that car. They need to focus on the task in hand. And that's the task, that's to fix the car in 2025. Can you imagine they focus on 2026 and they don't have Max Verstappen? He effects for the bloody clause and leaves and or goes on a sabbatical. What then? There's only one driver on this grid that can drive that car, that can slay for that dragon, that's difficult to handle. That is the 2025 RB21. He has a name, and his name is Maximilian Verstappen. He says that he's just focused on the car. They're just focused on improving it, not necessarily upgrades, but setup as well. Crofty then follows up and says there's something, does the SH1T sandwich questioning technique leads with something positive? Of course, Crofty, but I think Max Verstappen sees you coming and everybody else a mile away. Crofty says there's something about Jeddah and Red Bull. You guys tend to go really well around here. Aerodynamic efficiency, lower downforce, maximal output, but just as much torque on the track as there is off the track currently, says Crofty. And this week it was Helmut Marko, because he says that he fears your exit at Red Bull might be imminent. Crofty bookends, why is Helmut Marko saying that? Is it just because you were trying to overtake Pierre Gasly on the last lap for 6th or something else? You know, let me say something about interviewing. As a person who's conducted a couple of interviews, should never answer your own question. Just answer the question, Crofty. Full stop, new paragraph. That's what the goatee-est interviewers do. But then again, blessing out to Crofty, bless him, because he's not an interviewer per se. He's a commentator, more a broadcaster than a god-tier asker of a question. Max Verstappen responds, I don't know, to be honest. I just keep working, keep trying to improve the car now. Naturally, Bahrain was not a great weekend for us. I think, continues Max Verstappen, for some say soon to be 5-time champion, I think we were all pretty disappointed with that at Bahrain, and we just keep on trying to improve the car, come up with new ideas to try on the car. Competition, though, is tough, and yeah, that's how I go about my weeks, just trying to improve the situation. Max is doing one of these, and I think it's admirable. Even with my Max Verstappen cap on, objectivity and truth value, he just wants to fix for the car. All of this outside nonsense, all of this question asking and answering goes over Max Verstappen's head. Largely, he's just a chiseled racing driver. He only does all of this because he has to. It's a requisite for being able to get in the car on a Saturday and a Sunday and race as fast as he can. That's all he wants to do. Crofty responds, asking if Marko was getting the wrong end of the stick, to which Max Verstappen, now irked by the follow-up question, the fact that Crofty incessantly follows up, doubles down, he says, quote, "I think you should just focus on commentating. I'll focus on the driving, and then you know you don't need to think about any other scenarios." It's harsh from Max, but he's irked now, annoyed. I get that Crofty wants to poke the bear and ask Max Verstappen, get a cheeky quota, but imagine if Max was to turn around and said, "I'm joining Aston Martin." Oh, the humanity. Crofty, in that sense, you've got to have some empathy, but I would argue that his hows and his whys need leave something to be demanded, just ever so slightly. When asked about the Helmut Marko Vermeulen exchange, Max Verstappen said, "To my knowledge, they were just having a conversation about everything," which I think is allowed in the paddock as at 2025. Now, if somebody picks up on it, people can always see it in their own way, how people are discussing things. But I think we were all left frustrated with the result at Bahrain and the things that went wrong in the team, in the race. Pit stops, of course. The car was super slow. The ignominy of being chased down by Jack Doohan in an Alpine, struggling to overtake Pierre Gasly on the last lap. In Max Verstappen's mind, at the very least, that's not his lot. The best driver to ever do it. So why am I fighting with Jack Doohan, a rookie, and Pierre Gasly, master of the mediocre, some say? We all care at the end of the day. We all care about the team, continues Max, about the people, about results. I think that's quite normal. Gets techier than techie things, though. The questions are now pitched at Fernando El Plan Alonso. Do you feel like Max Verstappen is a threat to you? Because one of the rumours is that he'll be joining Aston Martin as soon as 2026. Where does that leave you then, Fernando El Plan Alonso, man from Oviedo, Asturias? Fernando continues, responds as follows. Listen, I'm not threatened by Max. That would be a brilliant signing if indeed we could pull it off as the green team Aston Martin of Lawrence Stroll's charge. He continues as Cameron's voice continues to bloody fade. He says, "You know what? I'm not sure though. It would be very easy to sign Max Verstappen. Ergo, I'm not sure that's the most likely outcome or eventuality." Fernando Alonso says, "I'm not threatened by Max. I've got a contract through to next year. And even if I retire before then, I will be working with Aston Martin. I'm working on bringing championships, even if I'm not a driver in the team." That's interesting from Fernando, eh? Techie, Jams. Jams headed to the UK later tonight. Is it cold or horrible? It's not too bad, Jams. It's okay. Safak, Chibi, yeah, that's true. Just worried that he might be out of options. What is Max? What if Max takes a sabbatical from F1 to it? It's an option, Umanch. It's an option. We know that because Jos Verstappen, father of Max, has told us a gazillion times that that's on the table. Not least because of the fact that his firstborn is due into the world imminently. So too, he's got 8 points on his super license. And there could be a race ban imminently too. Let me read this out to you as my voice is fading. This is important, chat. And again, a brilliant article by Scott Mitchell-Marm of The Race. And in there, he makes the obvious questions and answers them. And by the way, before I tell you that, Aston, Maximilian Verstappen was asked the following question. "There's a lot of rumour about you joining Mercedes, Aston Martin, but why not Ferrari?" Maximilian Verstappen to that responded by saying, "A lot of people are talking about it, my future, except one person, except me. Like I said before," continues Max, "I just want to focus on the car, on performance, on racing." And that quote in a nutshell summarises everything about Max Verstappen, why so many people hate him on one side because he lacks personality, because he's very vanilla, but why so many die-hard grizzled F1 veterans on the other side of the fence love that dude, because he's nothing apart from being a racer. That's what he lives and dies for. Scott Mitchell-Marm, he writes the headline that Verstappen's brilliantly frustrating response to Red Bull exit talk. And I would argue, listen, I don't always concur with Scott Mitchell-Marm's take, but I think he's nailed it there. that Max Verstappen is answering so prickly to those questions because he doesn't want to engage it. This is just a cost of business to Max. He doesn't want to answer these questions. He only answers them because he knows he needs to get in the car on Saturday and Sunday and do what he loves, what he's born to do. Scott Mitchell-Mom writes, he engages a lot less in broader topics. He's cut back some of the stuff he's done with Red Bull, and he has said less in interviews in both his native language and in English. For example, he was leaving the track on media day at Jeddah before 8 p.m. while some of the other drivers still had multiple other commitments. Focus. This is Max Verstappen realising that he's in a dogfight now if he wishes to become 4, soon to be 5-time. And therefore, you've got to double down. You've got to focus. You've got to get your Nico Rosberg on, the exact thing that Lando Norris refuses to do. Scott continues, Verstappen is only in F1 for what he needs to be there for and what matters to him. F1 Thursdays are not that. They're not a day where he just wants to hang around making noise. Why? Because that's not what Max Verstappen is there for, Benzi. Benzi, you owe me a link as well to Reddit, by the way. Do me a favour and ping it. He's not there for that. And again, you're either going to love that or hate it. Some people, I was just having a conversation with a friend about sport versus sports entertainment. Some people, part-time casuals, are only here for the personality. They're here for Sir Lewis on the cover of GQ. They're here for Sir Lewis going to the Met Gala and being a producer of it. Some people are here for that, but this is the subjectivity of F1. And far be it for me to proselytise nor look down my nose at anybody's raison d'etre as far as their F1 watching. This is subjectivity. This isn't for me, though. I'm here for racing, and that's why Max Verstappen speaks so clearly and concisely to the F1 populace that's only invested in what happens on Saturday or Sunday. The rest of it be damned. Scott Mitchell continues, it's a narrative around that which lurches from one thing to another. As Verstappen says, based on what everybody else comments, not what he says himself. There's an argument that Verstappen indirectly fans the flames with this approach around his future, but that is neither his intention nor something he even cares about. Touche, sir, he's nailed it. It just reflects how single-minded he is about racing, and he leaves the rest to us as journos, trying to follow breadcrumbs that have been scattered in the wind. He does not care. He doesn't want to talk about this to any of the F1's press and media. Miss RS, you're a legend. Around 6th of May's child will be, but imagine, so it's not long. It's all going to coincide. It's all kicking off at the same time, right, Safak? The summer break, his firstborn will be here, and then we'll get a proper indication of just the extent of the delta between the RB21 and the other cars on the grid. Joe, I guess that sums up you, Salvid. What Salvid's saying. Jeep, a 55G crash. Are we talking? Oh, we're not drudging up old bones. Why are we drudging up old bones? Right, it's going to get techie this weekend. We get more insight. Some F1 aficionados say only after race 6 will you get a better impression, a more robust and comprehensive understanding of the deltas between all of the cars. By that time, we'll see them on all different circumstances of circuits. You'll have China, you'll have Japan, you'll have Jeddah, you'll have Bahrain. It will get techier than techie things as Max Verstappen surveys the environment and makes the decision about his future. You've got George Russell in the background desperately trying to sign an apparently £30 million extension with Mercedes, which has, that rumour, recently become boshed by some of the latest and greatest F1 journos, saying that Toto, the boy who cried wolf, will wait it out. So keen is he to amend for his ills of Christmas past and sign Max Verstappen, do the thing that he didn't manage to do in 2015, make amends, shareholder value settings, sign the big one, the big fish, the one they call Maximilian Verstappen 4, some say soon to be 5-time champion. What are we doing? Yeah.